Tonight, I'm delighted to have Kelby Ouchley here. He's an author that I've admired for a long time. His writings about Louisiana. He's a wonderful writer. And there's refreshments there if y'all want to get up. If the sun gets in your eyes, just pull your chair around to a place where it's not beaming in. So that gets to be a little bit annoying. So I'm going to turn the program over to Kelby, and I know he's got some wonderful things to share with us. Thank you so much for coming.
Good evening. I'm glad you can be here this evening. We're going to talk a little bit about your history involving the Civil War. I need to tell you to start off with that I'm not a historian, but rather I'm a biologist by training and profession. For a long time I've had an educational interest in the Civil War. And that led me to write a book. It's kind of a blend of traditional and natural history. And today I would like to share some of the things that I learned in my research for this book, part of this book, and try to relate them to the state of Louisiana when I can.
It's like a cell phone. No. It's coming from over there somewhere. Oh. Can y'all hear otherwise without wearing that mic? Okay, if you can't, just apologize. All right, so anyway, this is the book, Flora, called Flora and Fauna of the Civil War. It was published by LSU Press several years ago. And of course, I don't have to tell you, but I'm sure you know that flora is plants and fauna are animals. So we're going to talk about wild plants and animals in the Civil War. But to begin with, I'd like to read you a Civil War quote from my book that pertains to natural history and has a direct connection to North Louisiana here where we live. There was a Private Alexander Downing with 11th Iowa Infantry. He was a Yankee. He was near Monroe on August the 27th, 1863, when he wrote in his diary, "This is the worst bivouac we have yet occupied. It is full of poisonous reptiles and insects and centipedes and chickers and wood ticks and lizards and scorpions and snakes of all kinds I have never seen the like. Some of the boys killed 2 big spotted yellow snakes and put them across the road, and they measured about 15 feet each." Well, I'll tell you something about that. When I read this quote to another Louisiana audience, someone in the back jumped up and shouted, "Well, why didn't they just go home if they just liked it?" That was probably a common sentiment in much of Louisiana during the occupation of the time during the Civil War. But anyway, why write a book on the wild flora and fauna of the Civil War? Well, the study of the environmental aspects of the war is in its infancy, as there's only about 4 books out there in the literature that tackle this angle. But the fact that not much has been written about a topic is only a partial answer and not necessarily a good one. Looking at the affairs of the United States between 1861 and 1865, which was when the Civil War occurred, it reveals some new issues pertinent to the natural history of America. First, humans impacted plants and animals on an unprecedented scale as millions of soldiers and refugees trampled across the landscape, foraging and waging war. And second, at a new magnitude, wild plants and animals impacted people in the form of barriers and disease vectors and medicines and food and shelter and the raw products necessary to implement war. Third, the Civil War exposed many people to the nation's flora and fauna, often for the first time or in new ways. An example of that would be, before the war, many northern soldiers had never seen Spanish moths or alligators. And significantly, at least for historians, because of an increasing rate of literacy in the country, large numbers of people from all walks of life wrote about their encounters with wild plants and animals for the first time. The war generated countless letters, and diaries, and journals in which these writers often penned accounts of plants and animals that they come across. Sometimes it just is a brief comment in passing, and others as part of a description of a noteworthy life event. And collectively, these first-person anecdotes give us some insights on environmental perspectives of the era. So basically what I did was analyze several thousand Civil War letters, diaries, and journals. And my goals were to portray the roles and uses of wild plants and animals during the Civil War, and to try to figure out how people, soldiers and citizens alike, thought about wild plants and animals at the time of epic historical events as they recounted in their own words. A major part of this book consists of hundreds of first-person anecdotes pertaining to wild flora and fauna during the Civil War era that were gathered up into journals and letters and diaries. Passages were written by Union and Confederate soldiers of all ranks and all theaters of the war, by doctors and nurses and wealthy socialites and destitute wives and even some foreign observers who were over here at the time. So what I had done, I suppose, is I was always interested in the Civil War, and I loved reading these first-person accounts. You can't get better information than from the person who experienced it. After a point in time, I got to notice, being a biologist, I was interested, of course, in reading wild plants and animals that might have been mentioned. I started writing these little anecdotes down. After a while, I looked down there, after a couple of years, I looked down there and I had a pile about this big, and I said, well, maybe I can do something with these, and that's sort of what led to this point. But anyway, before we really get into the meat of it, it helps us to understand. It helps to understand the environmental setting of this whole country at the beginning of the Civil War. In terms of wild plants, we know that before humans migrated to North America, forests likely covered 650 million acres east of the Great Plains in what's now the United States. But changes began with the first Native Americans and their use of fire to alter the landscape. When Europeans reached the continent, the primeval forest had already been modified, although we don't know exactly to what extent. European settlers accelerated this pace drastically with new technology, especially those related to agriculture, like using iron tools and draft technology. By 1860, the year before the war, there was an estimated 73.4 million acres of farmlands in the South. But at the same time, there was an estimated 81.3 million acres of ag lands in the North. This was something that sort of surprised me. We always think of the South being basically agrarian during the war and the North having most of the industry. Well, that was indeed true, but at the same time, the North had a good bit more farmland than the South did. It was not on large plantation type estates. It was for the most part small parcel farms. And in addition to the agricultural pressures, forests were subjected to the demands of countless products, including lumber for building materials. We know that at the beginning of the Civil War, North Carolina's pine forests were the country's center of production for naval stores, very critical for a country to maintain a navy is to have access to naval stores. Wood for shipbuilding materials and resin products such as pitch and tar and turpentine were in great demand. Fuel wood fed the boilers of steam steamboats and locomotives, as well as fireplaces for domestic heating and cooking. Charcoal made from various species of cordwood fueled the fledgling iron industry, and hardwood ashes were used in the manufacture of potash, a basic ingredient in soft soap and gunpowder. And hardwood bark was necessary to tan leather. But in spite of these extensive human impacts to the forest, most of the area directly affected by the Civil War was still forested in 1861. They contained the great plant diversity that we associate with natural forests in the east and in the south. Okay, so let's start taking a little bit about the plants, the forest at the beginning of the Civil War, and we'll talk about the state of animals at the fauna at the beginning of the Civil War. You probably know the first Native Americans also impacted the fauna of North America. And then Europeans brought firearms and continued oppression, particularly on game animals. By 1850, most large game mammals had vanished from the Northeast. Before the Civil War, laws to protect wild animals were uncommon, rarely enforced, and were generally ineffective. But at the outbreak of the war, the types of animals found in the Civil War arena were very similar to those of today. There's a broad diversity of mammals, and birds, and fish, and reptiles that lived in a variety of habitats. It also helps us to know, know a bit about human attitudes toward nature at the beginning of the Civil War. Early American pioneers maintained European attitudes toward nature, considering it something to be conquered, civilized, and rid of competing wild beasts as necessary. The theory of manifest destiny reflected a theological belief that people were divinely appointed to use the earth for the enhancement of civilization, no holds barred. These attitudes eventually led to the decimation of many Native American cultures and the extinction or near extinction of several species of plants and animals. Okay, there's a slide behind there. That's a Civil War era photo of, a drawing of folks recreational shooting alligator. The South, where most, including Louisiana, where most of the actual fighting of the Civil War occurred, was essentially rural. Of the 100 largest cities in the United States in 1860, only 14 were in the South. New Orleans was the largest of those, and it ranked 6th. We can draw some generalities from these figures. On average, Confederate soldiers likely had more experience with nature than those from the North. And a large number of Northern soldiers from urban areas had minimal experiences with the natural world, city boys. In fact, these assumptions are confirmed in the journals and diaries and letters. All right, one table, I promise. We're not going to talk about that. One of the things it became obvious to me when I was collecting all these various anecdotes about wild plants and animals is that after looking at them for a while, it became obvious that you could throw them into one of about half a dozen categories about why this particular soldier or lady wrote that anecdote. And basically, that's these 6 over here. Okay, and if, for instance, a soldier was riding along in a cavalry group and just happened to mention in his journal that evening that they rode through a large grove of white oak trees, that sort of fit in that habitat component. To sort of mention that in general. If the anecdote pertained to an item of food, utilitarian items, curiosities, or if you mentioned them in a vein of medicine or pests, for instance, like ticks. So anyway, that's what that is all about. We'll talk a little bit about that. Okay, because of great diversity among Civil War participants on both sides, we've got to be careful about painting a particular block with certain characteristics. But if we analyze these anecdotes, we get some serious deductions out of it. As an example, Union and Confederate soldiers mention wild plants and animals most often in the context of food. If a soldier wrote about a wild plant or animal, more often than not, it was in the context of food. 29% is percentages. 29% of the times, Union soldiers were writing about wild plants or animals as a food item. 43% of the time, Confederate soldiers or Confederate Southern people wrote about it. It was in the context of food. Okay, also as a percentage of their total, Confederate soldiers wrote of plants as medicine twice as often as Union soldiers. If you stop and think about that, this parallels some generally held beliefs that Southern armies often suffered from lack of traditional rations and medicines more than their Northern counterparts. And if this was the case, Union soldiers would not have needed to regard wild plants and animals in the context of food and medicine as often as Southern soldiers. This is particularly true as the war progressed and the Southern armies became more deprived in things like rations and medicine. And the table also shows that Union soldiers mentioned wild plants and animals as habitat components and curiosities more than Southern soldiers did. And this was at least somewhat due to the fact that Northern soldiers were more likely to be farther from their homes and thus encountering unfamiliar species more frequently. And again, you know, if a Northern soldier was in Louisiana and he saw an alligator, he wrote about it. I mean, it was that much of a novelty. Southern soldiers would not necessarily have done that. Southerners, on the other hand, were mostly rural, most experienced toward familiar ecosystems, and the wild plants and animals were well known to them. And under such conditions, wild plants and animals were not as noteworthy unless they served an important practical purpose, like food or medicine. You need to know that there are plenty of exceptions to this. Okay, if we look at just the top half of this slide here, if you go through all these hundreds of anecdotes, and you look at the ones that mentioned plants as food, these are the ones that were mentioned most in order of frequency. If a Union soldier wrote about plant as food, more often than not, it was blackberries. Second, chestnuts and chickpeas, then huckleberries. Confederate soldiers wrote about plants as food, more often than not, it was chestnuts and chickpeas, and then grapes and blackberries. In general, though, if a soldier, Northern or Southern, wrote about wild plants and animals as food, they wrote about wild animals as food more than they did wild plants. And this is directly opposite of what women would write about. The wives that were left home, which sort of makes sense too. Okay, blackberries, again, blackberry, it amazed me how often blackberries were mentioned as food. Everywhere from the lowest private to the generals would write about entire units falling out on the side of the road picking blackberries. And they did this to such a degree that I'm convinced they were giving themselves prophylactic doses of vitamin C, even though doses of vitamin C hadn't been discovered at that point in time. But everybody liked blackberries. Chestnuts, and I should be don't know much about chestnuts, the North American chestnut was the dominant tree in the eastern forest. They were, you really can't overstate the importance of chestnuts, not only to wildlife, but to humans, for all kind of things. There was a blight that came from Europe around just after 1900, I think, it totally eliminated. There are basically none left except a few sprouts that come up and go back and die. These are different from Chinese chestnuts. But in any event, their nuts were very nutritious. They were easy to gather. And along those same lines, there were never chestnuts in Louisiana. There were chickpeas. Probably some of you in here know about chickpeas. And so the Southern soldiers in this part of the world would have gathered chickpeas. And this is a list. I just pulled out some of the things out of the diary that was mentioned as having plants that I mentioned as having used by food by soldiers on both sides. Some pretty unusual things. Cane. There were others. Quite a few others. Okay, if we go back look at this slide again, you look at the bottom half, it's the same type of situation. When a soldier wrote about a wild animal in the context of food, whether he's from the north or the south, more often than not, he was talking about fish. Union soldiers next, in order of preference, was wild birds and then oysters. Oysters, particularly, you had a bunch of Union soldiers from the Midwest who had never been exposed to oysters before, and it's sort of like alligators. When they did get exposed to them, they wrote about them. And on the Confederate side over here was fish, and then squirrels were second in importance, and then wild birds. It's a pretty rare photograph of Civil War era photograph of Union soldiers fishing. It's up in Virginia somewhere. This guy's got a pole, and one of these other guys over here got a fishing pole too. The frequent mention of fish in these diaries and journals and letters was probably due to the availability of fish and all the many different water bodies in the Civil War year-round, relative ease in acquiring fish, and the high value that was placed on fish as a desirable food source. Many times when they wrote about fish, you were able to determine what species they were talking about, at least what they thought they were talking about. And if you had to pick a type of fish, which one do you think was written about more often than any other?
Gar.
Gar. Yeah, well, you have to think, this is sort of the whole Civil War agreement. Think about
I read the book, it was shad.
Okay, yeah.
Carp.
Well, it was indeed American shad. American shad or not, it's never been found in Louisiana. It's a different type than our gizzard shad and our threadfin shad. But they are found all over down the east coast, down around Florida. And these are anadromous fish, like some salmon, in that they spend much of their life out in the ocean, and then they run up the creeks and rivers to spawn. And when they did this historically, it was said that you could almost walk across the creeks and the rivers on their backs. There were so many of them. There were millions and millions of them would come in, and they were easy to catch. Soldiers wrote about taking their blankets out there and making seines out of them and watering them up on the bank. And they smoked a lot of them. But in any event, day in and day out, more passages pertain to American shad than any other, although catfish were mentioned also. That's sort of what I would have thought, at least in this part of the world, it may have been. These are, I gathered up some photographs of particular bird species that were mentioned as food